Batman Begins loses to Home Alone 19 votes to 22. Wonder what Alfred would think.
What was the point of all those push-ups if you can't even beat Home Alone?
Hi, the internet. It's Nick, or as you know me, Brandon's other brother. Wait a second. Am I the Fredo? Riding the wave of the early 90s Western interest in the modern Japanese ninja? Three Ninjas is a 1992 movie about three white brothers with a Japanese grandfather, and boy does he teach them the ways of the ninja. This movie's on our bracket because we loved it when we were kids. Brandon is Rocky, I'm Colt, and Marshall is Tum Tum. This movie was always going to lose to Shawshank. Good job, everybody. I think you did the right thing.
Next, among the fallen, we have Erie's own, the O-Needers. Or, as Lenny would interject, hey, that's O-Netters. And they were ousted by a convincing margin, 15 votes to 26, by the legitimately worthy victor, Silence of the Lambs. I was able to reach Playtone Records representative Mr. White to discuss the results of this matchup. He only said dryly and knowingly, "One and done wonders. It's a very common tale." So this is a bit of a reality check, I suppose, for me. One of my most beloved films, but it's knocked out very early on, so perhaps a testament to some people haven't seen it, or some people just simply don't like it nearly as much as I do, or perhaps it is just that Silence of the Lambs is so good and there's no shame losing to it. But whatever the case, your band has fallen apart, guy.
Independence Day is a fun movie. It's a Wonderful Life is one of the greatest films ever made. My mouth's bleeding! My mouth! 1946, directed by Frank Capra, starring Jimmy Stewart and Donna Reed. I watch this movie every Christmas, and I cry the entire time. In 1946, you wouldn't have gone to see this movie multiple times. Home video didn't exist, so you wouldn't watch it again. And yet, this movie is chock full of details. When you watch it again and again, you see that scenes that follow each other in the movie but are shot in different places nevertheless have some continuity. 61% of you went for Independence Day. Wow. What honestly, I'm going to try not to be too critical, but what were you guys thinking? Do you think when Clarence came down from heaven, Will Smith was there and he was like, "Welcome to Earth"?
The bracket's only Western goes down shooting, dying with its boots on behind the OK Corral by the narrowest of margins, 20 votes to 21 against Bourne. Yeah, I'll go ahead and say it. Shame on you people. You denied some of the most iconic characters and some of the best one-liners in the rich lore of the Western genre. And for what? To advance an amnesiac with a gift for ending life and avoiding capture, embarking on a thrilling trek across Europe in search of answers while bringing the CIA to its knees? This, as the kids say, is not okay. So, as Doc Holliday says to Sheriff Behan, forgive me if I don't shake hands.
I just had an apostrophe. I think you mean an epiphany. 1991's Hook, starring Robin Williams and Dustin Hoffman as Captain Hook himself. Directed by Steven Spielberg. This is one of those very rare live-action movies that, honest to goodness, is as fun for the adults as it is for the kids. I've lost me marbles. I'm not that kind of lawyer. 70.7% of you haven't found your happy thought. And with that, it looks like Hook is heading to the second star on the right and straight on until morning.
The Cinderella run of Hickory comes to an end quite early as they are beaten soundly, 14 votes to 27 by The Last Crusade. I love The Last Crusade. It's one of my favorite films, but this makes me a little bit sad. This is my favorite sports film and one that I watched many times, especially in my youth and adolescence. before reaching the soul-crushing realization that I would never play for KU, much less the NBA. Sentimental favorite of mine, when Jimmy Chitwood looks at his teammates, then at Coach Dale during that final timeout before their last possession in the state championship, and says, "I'll make it." It still warms the chambers of my 3 sizes too small heart.
I'm sorry, I was all the way over here. I couldn't hear you. Did you say you're a fast cook? That's it? My Cousin Vinny is the most wholesome comedy if you just ignore the constant drip of swears. How do you cook your grits? Are they regular, creamy, or al dente? I mean, per capita, that's like, how many F-bombs are in that movie? 7 bushes. Joe Pesci, Marissa Tomei star, along with Ralph Macchio, who might be better known as the Karate Kid, and this is the only other movie I've ever seen him in. You're famous for your mud? How's your Chinese food? The Big Lebowski takes this match 58.5 to 41.5. If you haven't seen My Cousin Vinny, do yourself a favor.
The Rock succumbs to asphyxiation after its encounter with VX Poison. Pixar juggernaut Toy Story by a count of 13 votes to 28. Oh, Mac, why am I not surprised? I still really like the odd couple pairing of self-proclaimed chemical super freak Stanley Goodspeed, played by Nick Cage, and ex-convict John Mason, who knows the truth about the JFK assassination, played by Sean Connery. This film is classic Michael Bay, chock full of explosions, adrenaline, and machismo. I maintain that it's a worthy tournament team, but not one that deserved to see the round of 32.
Waking Ned Devine is a 1998 indie Irish comedy about a town full of senior citizens where one member of their community wins the lotto and dies of shock. And the rest of the town tries to figure out how to claim the money. It is hilarious. Chicken dinner. I thought it was his intestines. Waking Ned Devine looks like it pulled down 1 vote. Raiders of the Lost Ark took down 97.6%. It is too bad that most of you have not seen this movie.
Much like the outcome of Apollo Creed's ill-fated bout with one Ivan Drago, the result of Rocky IV against Empire Strikes Back felt very inevitable. I am not surprised by this in the least, and nor do I have any problem with it. In my opinion, though, to eulogize this film properly, this is probably the most rewatchable of the Rocky films. My friend and I used to watch the Rocky films, and this one in particular, especially the training montage and the fight itself in preparation for junior high basketball tryouts. Great score and soundtrack. Little known fact from history, it was actually Rocky who brought about the swift end to the Cold War. So his speech following his defeat of Ivan Drago staved off nuclear annihilation. So thank you, Rocky Balboa.
El Camino, a Breaking Bad movie, is a 2019 follow-up to the hit series, which a couple of years ago Brendan introduced me to, and I love. A rarity for us today as 30-somethings, Brendan and I actually saw this together in theaters, and it was a good time. El Camino loses to Braveheart. Braveheart took down 85.4% of the vote. I think not a lot of people have seen El Camino. If you're a fan of Breaking Bad, definitely do yourself a favor and check it out.
Love Actually gets punked 11 votes to 30 by Catch Me If You Can. Love Actually is a must-watch Christmas film for me. There's so many tremendous actors, the late Alan Rickman, Bill Nighy in an absolutely hysterical role, Keira Knightley, Hugh Grant, Emma Thompson, Colin Firth, and The Walking Dead's Andrew Lincoln. That's seriously how they promoted it one year, as if to say, if you enjoyed watching him chop zombies to bits in a hellscape post-apocalyptic thriller, you'll just love this look at his softer side and this seasonal rom-com. The airport scene with the little boy chasing down his crush and evading security, eventually rewarded with a kiss on his cheek, still makes me teary-eyed.
I had the audacity to beg Brandon to allow me to give the eulogy to the Count of Monte Cristo. I was so insistent, and such is the graciousness of our host, that he reluctantly gave up his fatherly right in order to accommodate a guest, even one as boorish as myself. 2002's The Count of Monte Cristo is not faithful to the classic novel. One of the things I've always appreciated about this is it being set during the colonial powers era. For me, it allows its themes to transcend the modern mundanity and sort of enter that spiritual realm of, this is a human story. If you haven't seen this movie, obviously I recommend it. It's my favorite movie of all time. Swashbuckling, action, adventure, romance, political intrigue, the works. This is the most nostalgic movie for me when I think about me and Brandon. We used to watch this all the time in high school, late into the night, and often Brandon would be asleep an hour in. In life, we are all either kings or pawns, and today, kings to you, Ocean's 11.
Goodbye, George. See you next Thursday. Unfortunately, Father of the Bride 2 took 2 Vosnik, and it fell to The Dark Knight, 8 votes to 33. This film means a lot to me because it's probably the one that my mom and I both mutually enjoy the best together. So we can quote it frontwards and backwards. I also think you'd be hard-pressed to find a more charming, funny, and wholesome film. I think that's kind of a rare trio these days. The core cast members, Diane Keaton, Steve Martin, Martin Short, are fantastic. It's a film that means more and more to me the older I get. But just as George and Nina had to wave goodbye to their Boston-bound daughter Annie, newly born granddaughter, and much maligned son-in-law Brian McKenzie, so too must we wave goodbye to this film.
And with Memento out, we bid adieu to Guy Pearce. You know I couldn't live in a world where you have Ocean's 11 and Dumb and Dumber, and I have nothing. Memento is a 2000 film. It's one of those head trip movies that were very popular among high school guys around that time. What's really interesting artistically about it is the order that the story is told. After you've absorbed the novel story structure, I'm afraid that Memento doesn't have a lot to offer. Not something I often go back for, and evidently our friends thought the same, as Memento only pulled about 35% of the vote.